Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle. You're inside looking to Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I am your host, and we're pleased to be joined by Mark Jarsfer, the head coach of Gladwin. Hello, how are you?
Doing really well. How are you?
Doing good. And for all the viewers that were looking for this yesterday, my apologies. We had a little bit of a mix up yesterday. So better late than never. Of course, coming off a huge win against Kingsford, traveling all the way up there. How about that? And first, you wanna thank a few people for the Kingsford trip, first off?
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously an unbelievable trip, and so we'll go ahead and do that because actually I knew you were going to ask me about the staff member of the week this week, and so I had made a note that I wanted to give that to our Gladwin admin team for all of their work and making this trip possible. That's one thing that a lot of people may not understand is how much work goes into making a 12-hour round trip possible, moving 40 players and 10 plus coaches and making sure they have a place to sleep and transportation and all the logistics of everything that goes into that. And so first one is our athletic director, Lauren Wetmore. She was absolutely fantastic throughout the entire process. Like as soon as we knew that we were heading to Kingsford, after week 9, she was right on scheduling hotels and getting a charter bus and looking into restaurants and the list goes on and on. Our principal, Elizabeth Brown, never balked at the idea whatsoever that we needed out of school a little bit early on Friday to make that trip up so that we can keep our routine the same as far as still getting a practice in around the normal time and making sure we could get to dinner and checked in to our hotel. And so she was a rock star and like I said, never batted an eye at it. And then obviously, there's a financial component that's built into a long trip like that the district has to incur. And, Chuck Frisbee, our superintendent, who was just as supportive as anybody and yeah, let's go, let's make it happen, whatever you need type situation. And so, an administrative team being supportive is one of the most important things of any good football program. And we certainly have that here in Gladwin. So there are staff members of the week, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's talk about the game. What do we let's just go in and talk about the highlights. So I'll let you do that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, we got off to a fast start, which we talked all week. It was going to be super important to not let them get comfortable in on their home field and being 9-0 and all that kind of stuff. We wanted to get off to a fast start so that they wouldn't have rolling momentum, and we certainly did that. We got off to 15-0 lead with the first pass coming from Colton to Trace Corlew. We got a little bit lucky there with a tip deflected ball that kind of fell into Corlew's hands and he was off to the races. But you'll take it when you can get it. And so our second one was we got down into like the inside the 5 type situation and Colton Finninger pulled it down and QB kept up the middle for our second touchdown. Kind of a bobbled snap on the extra point that led to Trace running around the right end and picking up that 2-point conversion to give us a 15-0 lead. We really did a great job, defensively and really shutting them down for much of the first half. If it wasn't for a pass interference call to end the half on a ball that we had picked off, they wouldn't have scored. They had a untimed down due to that pass interference, which allowed them to kind of chuck one up, and they came down with it right before half, which obviously wasn't ideal. I mean, that gave them some unwarranted momentum, but nonetheless, they had that momentum going into half, and then we came back out. And really had a hard time getting things, going offensively. Obviously, they're a good football team, 9-0 for a reason. They had won their last 11 straight home games, and then 16 of their last 17 games overall, and they're ranked, depending on the poll, either number 3 or 4 in the state. And so, it's easy to get frustrated at the offense and stuff like that, but we got to understand that we're also playing against another good high caliber team. And so points aren't necessarily always going to come in bunches when you're going against other good teams. And so, it was kind of a back and forth. They put one more on the board, broke a couple tackles and took it up the middle. Got the 2-point conversion, made it 15-15, and then late in the fourth quarter, our freshman Bronson Bigham came up with kind of a spectacular one-handed grab that put us into field goal range, and our drive kind of sputtered out there. Had an opportunity to kick the game-winning field goal not only once but twice, because they had a dead ball encroachment penalty on the one that we made. But of course, since it's dead ball, we had to re-kick it, and Rogo put it through the uprights for the second time. And then from there, it was just playing defense to preserve that lead for the final 4 minutes. And so, unbelievable, job by our team. We had to deal with a lot of penalties and adversity, kind of in that sense. But they kind of kept a level head and just kept fighting away and doing what we were asking them to do. And because of it, we turned a 12-hour round trip into a chance for a district title this Friday.
All right. So now it's time for our playoff edition of MVPs of the week.
Yeah, our offensive MVP this week, I think, is deserving to Bronson Bigham. He's a freshman playing up on varsity, has had big play potential, but has just been limited in an offensive role this year due to having other guys that kind of fill those spots, and he's been a big time contributor on defense. Actually leads the team in interceptions. And then, when he was called upon for his opportunity this week, he, ran a go route and made just that fantastic one-handed catch that set up the game-winning field goal. And so, he's going to be a big-time playmaker for us in the next 3 years. And certainly we're already feeling that impact this year, both defensively and offensively, which is exciting. Anytime you can have a true freshman doing big things for you in the playoffs. And so he's our offensive MVP. Defensive MVP is Caden Reed. He's our big nose tackle. Had a heck of a game. He has one of the toughest jobs on the field, and that's basically just trying to take up double and triple teams. He's a big kid. He's, I want to say, 6'5.5", about 270. Somebody that really improved their strength and whatnot over the off season. And he did a great job kind of plugging up the middle and allowing our linebackers room to work and operate. And we had held them to relatively little rushing yards that game. And he's a big reason for why that happened. Even had a tackle for loss in there, and some fourth down stops that wouldn't have happened without that presence in the middle. And so Caden Reed is our defensive MVP, and then our special teams guy has got to be Eric Rogo. He was previously 0 for 2 this year on field goals. Hadn't had an attempt since week 4, but just kept working at it and kind of grinding in practice and showing up every day and trying to fine tune that. And he never flinched when his opportunity came. And we've been pretty fortunate to have some good kickers over the past couple of years that have won some pretty big games for us. And so he'll kind of go down as another one that's remembered for that kick. And so Eric Rogo is our special teams MVP.
All right. So of course, now with it being the playoffs, and obviously we already talked about our staff members of the week, but obviously let's talk about that trip. What was that like for you? Just now do you want to kind of highlight obviously the Gladwin people, but everybody else, the hotels, the bus service, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, and so we left school at 10 a.m. on Friday, and like I said earlier, we wanted to try to keep our routine as normal as we could. And so kids are normally sitting in school all day from 10, 8 until 3, I guess. And so we made them sit in school for the first 2 hours of the day, put them on the bus for 5.5, 6 hours, which we got up to Escanaba around 3:30, and so really they would have been sitting in school anyways, and so sitting on a bus didn't really matter. Got to Escanaba High School, and they were gracious too for opening up their locker room and field to allow us to practice there. And so we got our practice in there, and then moved on to getting checked into the hotel. Hotel staff was great, obviously, and accommodating us, and it's a lot to take on a full football team, and coaches and community and that kind of stuff. They did a great job with it. Um, After we got checked into the hotel, our athletic director Lauren had dinner waiting there for us. Another administrator, Josh Paul, the elementary school principal, was there to help serve dinner, and Terry Brockoff and his son Scott, kind of our GAA booster club leaders, were there and assisting with that too. And so, after dinner, we watched the Clare and Ogemaw game in a meeting room, and then our kids kind of got ready for bed, and it was up and at it in the morning. Again, just kind of our normal routine. And so we brought weightlifting stuff because we always do a pregame lift. We got our walkthrough in, got to the field about 2 hours early, and got familiar with that. And then from there, it was just playing. And so, I will say that everybody, in from Kingsford to the hotel to Escanaba to everything with the trip, there's so many people up there that were so hospitable, and welcoming us, and really never felt any ill will or anything like that out of anybody up there. And so, great experience for our kids, and certainly a memorable one that they'll cherish for a while.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously it is survive and advance. So you survived, so that means guess what? You advance. So
Yeah,
obviously a very familiar opponent. Next week, of course, Ogemaw Heights, another for the let's see, the fourth time, I think.
yeah, it's been a lot.
I think it was fourth or fifth.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as you were kind of leading into that question. Like, man, we have played them more than anybody else, because I think we played them in that state championship year in the first round of the playoffs. We played them twice last year. We played them. This will be the second time this year, and so we're very familiar with each other. But this is it's like you said, it's a survive and advance, and football is a unique sport, in the terms that when you win one single playoff game, you're one of only 16 teams left. And so now the field, from this point, after Friday Saturday games are done, we'll be down to the final 8. And so everybody's good, everybody's tough, and Ogemaw is certainly fits that bill, and very deserving to be in this game. And so, they made it challenging for us last time, and back in week 3 when we played them. But I think that we've grown quite a bit as a team, and as have they. And so there'll be new wrinkles for both teams, and we're just looking forward to the opportunity, to compete for a district title, because that's a special thing too. We only have 2 of those in school history, and so for our guys to be able to put a third marking on that banner that hangs in the gym is something that would be there for eternity, and is a great opportunity, and I know they're excited about it.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Remember, the game is at Ogemaw Heights, and by the way, remember I get all sales. If you would like to go to the game, you must go on GoFan and purchase a ticket. So there you go. Also, all right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Flying G Huddle. Tune in next week where we will recap this game. And regardless, we will either, of course, preview next week's game, or we'll do the season recap. So we are coming on regardless. So there you go. All right. We'll talk to you next week.